Thanks again to everyone for being here. Practicing with my new button. If you've not been here before, I bet most of you haven't, this is just the second meeting we've held in this space, and we're still in a little bit of a shakedown mode, checking the sound and making sure all the equipment works. If you were here last week for our regular city council meeting, you'll notice we now have audio and video. So we hope you'll be able to follow along the presentations and things that way. So we're real excited to be here and have one place. So as you hear about other meetings that are coming up, zoning board, planning commission, all those things will be right here. No more moving around town and guessing where we're going to be on a given night. This will be the place to come. So welcome and come often. Just a few announcements, and then I want to kind of introduce the one topic for tonight. But on other subjects, next week we have the State of the City address, the first one in Tucker's brief history. That will also be right here. We'll have kind of a grand opening of this space then, some special guests and celebratory things and a brief speech from your mayor. That's on Friday the 12th, a week from this Friday. The next day is Tucker Day, the 13th. There'll be all kinds of kids' activities in the parking lot right outside here and all sorts of other things all up and down Main Street. So plan to come and spend the day and hang out with your neighbors, and we'll pray for good weather in the meantime. We have, as always, I don't know where to point anymore. We have a sign-in sheet somewhere. If you'd like to have, there we are. We do our monthly newsletter called In Tucker. Matt Holmes, our communications director, is doing a great job getting that out for us. It goes out electronically if you want to sign up for it by email. But if you don't do email, or you have a neighbor who doesn't and you'd like to sign up to receive it by snail mail, we will put a stamp on it and send it right to your house. So there's a sign-up sheet over there for that, or you can just see Matt while you're here tonight. Also, special thanks to Matt and lots of others. On Saturday, a couple of days ago, we had the first annual Tucker Hoops Summit. How many of y'all saw something about that online or elsewhere? Anybody know what that was about? A guy named Cliff Gates, who's the youth pastor at Mountain West Church of God, totally his brainchild, totally made it go and executed. It was a basketball tournament, a day-long basketball tournament for youth from ages, I think, 11 to 17 or 18. Could sign up individually or with friends or as a group. And they paired them up with police and sheriff's officers, and they had a basketball tournament all day. Had 135 kids, 30 police officers, and 42 volunteers, many of whom were from Mountain West Church of God. Just a great event and a great time building community among all those folks. And so Cliff's not here tonight, but it just the kind of, I told him, I told others, government can't do that stuff. We can't pull off an event like that. It wouldn't be near as meaningful. It wouldn't have the same effect. But he did it just as a mission, and it was a great day. So thanks to him, and it was a real boon for our community. So tonight, I want to set the framework a little bit for you about what we're going to be talking about and how it fits in with some other things that we're doing. So we had, for the city, we had a budget from the time we were formed last March through the end of the calendar year. And then we decided that our fiscal year is going to run July 1st through the end of June each year, which meant we had to do a 6-month budget for the first half of 2017. That's the period that we're in now. We're coming to the end of it. And what that means is we're in the planning process for our first full fiscal year budget, which will begin July the 1st. And we're trying to get that budget done and passed by the end of May, this May, right now. So we're in the throes of analyzing and gathering data, figuring out our revenues and our expenses and all of those things. One of the things that we'll have to do as part of that year's budget is parks, and figure out what we're going to do about parks and how we're going to kind of adopt the responsibility for all that and all of those things. So as part of that, we engaged a firm called Low Engineering, who has been studying our parks on a number of different levels, or studying the parks that exist in Tucker today on a number of different levels. So they've been analyzing the current state of them. What kind of equipment do they have? What kind of maintenance do they need? What about a couple of really important dams? What about the pool, the rec center, all those things? What shape are they in? What kinds of investment do they need right away? What's it going to cost to operate them? What sort of programming will we have there? They're examining all of those things, and the net result of that is going to be a very thorough report that's due to us in a couple of weeks. We've asked them to give us tonight this preliminary information about budget-related things because we're trying to pass our budget. And so they're here tonight to give us just that piece of it, and just really the operating piece. What will it cost if we took on all those parks tomorrow or some future date? What kind of costs do we need to anticipate just to sort of run them? When we get the full report, it'll include a lot of information about capital needs, but tonight is just about operating budget for the most part, and they'll give us a little better understanding of all of that. The reason I say all this is I don't want anybody going out here tonight and getting on Facebook and saying, hey, the council decided X, because the council's not deciding anything tonight. We're not for something or against something. A lot of this we're going to be hearing with you for the first time about what some of these things are going to cost, and we're going to have other conversations with ourselves and with our staff and with Lowe over the next couple of weeks. And then, so we're meeting tonight to get just that preliminary, only the operating piece of their work. A week from tonight, we'll have a regular city council meeting. Between now and then, we will have published a draft of this budget for the full year. In other words, in the next few days, that budget's going to be available online and otherwise, because a week from tonight on Monday at our regular council meeting, we're going to have a public hearing where you can come and speak about the budget. You can say what you like or don't like, or what ought to be more or less, or what we've forgotten, or anything like that. That's a week from tonight, May the 8th, public hearing, first go on the budget. A week from then, 2 weeks from tonight, we'll have another work session about the budget. That's mostly for us to discuss what we've learned and what we've heard between now and then, and kind of work toward a finished product. A week from then, 3 weeks from tonight, is our next regularly scheduled city council meeting. We hope to be ready to adopt the budget by then, but if we're not, we'll discuss it further, and we may have to go one more week before we approve it, but we'll sort that out as we get a little bit closer. So there you go, your council, your staff, hard at work, lots of people doing lots of work to get us to that point. So that's where tonight fits in that little piece of this much bigger process that we're underway with. Am I saying that right? So the only item of business on our agenda tonight is to hear the presentation from Lowe, and for us maybe ask questions about anything in that presentation that we need clarity on or not certain about. Is somebody going to introduce these guys, or are they going to introduce themselves? Come on up. Tell us who you are and what you're running for. I mean, what's your...
I 5 years for the city of Pine Lake.
Oh, very good.
For me, so I understand y'all side of the dais also. My name is Brent Walker. I work with Lowe Engineers and part of the Parks Transition team. And this is John Drysdale with Lowe Engineers also. It's on? Yeah. What about it? I was told not to lean into it. All right. I can't hear myself through it, so if y'all can't hear me, just speak up and we can speak into it louder. Okay. I want to thank the mayor and council for allowing us to come tonight and present some of our findings. We're still fine-tuning some of the final presentation. Want to make a nice, slick presentation for you guys to share with the public, and of course have a better understanding of how the process we went through and some of the things we found. Part of our task was to come up with some options for that transition plan of how to bring those DeKalb County parks into City of Tucker, and what the best options were for you as far as community buy-in, as far as budget, as far as expectations from the community. We saw that in the survey data and a lot of the comments we had, a lot of folks didn't even realize that those parks were in Tucker, or didn't realize that Tucker had the potential to have so many parks. So that was good to see, but it also pointed out a severe lack in communication when it comes to DeKalb County parks and the communities they serve, which is something that we've seen in Dunwoody and Brookhaven and some of the other newer cities, that there just wasn't a lot of local buy-in from the county to the community, but more from the community into the parks. There's a lot of friends groups, a lot of churches that create involved programs and things like that in what will formerly be the county parks when you guys take them over. So as far as the survey data goes, we didn't find any kind of outlying unexpected things from the comments or from the data we received. And also through our assessments, there wasn't anything out that stood out as a major concern. There's a lot of maintenance concerns, a lot of liability concerns with playgrounds and the pools and stuff like that, of just unmet maintenance needs. The county has not done a good job, in my opinion, in a long time maintaining their parks. There hasn't been any plan for deferred maintenance. There hasn't been any plan for improved maintenance or anything like that. It's basically just status quo. I have not seen a replacement plan for a lot of the equipment in your parks as far as playgrounds and things like that. So unfortunately, I live in the cab too, so I've seen it happen where they just tend to rot in place, and that's unfortunate. And if it's not for friends groups and volunteer organizations that take a personal attachment to the park, then you just don't see those types of improvements. So, but I'll start the presentation, and you guys are welcome to jump in at any time, ask any questions you like, and hopefully I'll have the answers for you tonight. So, our scope was to provide at least 2 recommendations for overall strategies for how to transition those parks and get community feedback to ensure that safety's future efforts align with citizen needs. We've had a pretty good response, pretty extensive response from the community, a lot of comments, which is great, because that really shows what else everybody else is thinking about. We try to keep the survey fairly limited. We want to have 50, 60 questions because people wouldn't finish it. So we try to keep the questions as brief as we could, but allow for people to tell us about areas that may not have been captured in the survey, which there's also some of that. There are always special interest groups in the community that you guys may not even know about, we don't know about, until you start opening these facilities up and opening these types of levels of communication up with your community, and start seeing what's actually occurring in the parks. Because until you guys really get your hands around it, you're not going to even know what they're doing out there, other than your standard soccer and the activities going on at Tucker Rec Center. So with that, we did as I said, parks conditions. We did on the ground, foot by foot, walked through all the parks, did a general inventory, did analysis on what was good, what was bad, what needed to be replaced. We're coming up with a capital projects list for you guys. We have some operational maintenance ideas for you guys on what the lowest hanging fruit is from a liability standpoint, what you should really tackle first. As I said before, there's numerous maintenance issues, a lot of just unmet needs over several years, a lot of painting, a lot of patching, broken benches, windows, things like that. So you guys live here, you probably visited the parks and know what we're talking about. One of the biggest assets you have that is pretty aged is your playground equipment. There's about a 25-year lifespan with that stuff if you maintain it and keep it in good order. So pretty much all of your parks' playground equipment is outdated. There are some things you can do to make it safer and probably get another year or 2 out of it, but that's something you're going to need to consider within the next 5 years, is how to replace that playground equipment. It can certainly be dovetailed into your parks master plan process as to where those new playgrounds need to go. They don't have to go where they are now. If that's something that doesn't work out for the community for various reasons, or how the park was designed in 1978 or 1985 or whenever they were built, may not work now. So that's something from a capital asset management and liability concern that y'all should consider as soon as you can, is how to replace those playgrounds. The newest playground we saw was probably at Peters Park, and it was still in need of repair. So that is something that definitely needs to be looked at sooner rather than later. Again, communication is key, from what the mayor said earlier about all the stuff that you guys are putting out in your community bulletin and all that stuff is fantastic. It's probably something that a lot of these folks out here behind me haven't seen from a government in a long time, so I'm sure it's refreshing from them to have that local approach to what they enjoy in their daily lives. And that seems to be one of the biggest things that I've seen with the CAB is just the lack of communication into the community. And we got a lot of that same comment is, I didn't even know we had these programs at the rec center, and I didn't even know there was a park in this area of town. And so fortunately and unfortunately, you guys have a neighbor to your east that has a premier park service in Gwinnett County. We did see a lot of folks are going there to get their needs met. So I know you guys certainly want to bring that back here and apply your tax dollars to their needs at home. Again, safety concerns were highlighted in our assessment. We wanted to make sure that we tried to tackle those liability issues, any power concerns or sharp objects or anything in the park that may cause harm. We want to try to avoid any potential liability for you guys as soon as you take them over. So we highlighted that in our study. And then just basic cleanup. You know, it takes more than just going and emptying out trash cans every once in a while to keep a park clean. You know, people have used your parks, and there's garbage where you never thought there would be garbage piled up. So the county, again, did not do a very good job of keeping the parks clean, and I certainly think that you guys can do a better job of that. We provided some budget recommendations to y'all, and y'all had a chance to look at them. So we can certainly talk about that some more if you like in depth. And then again, the draft report will be delivered the week of May 15th. So our 3 transition strategies, the 3 options. You all only wanted 2, but we figured we'd go and give you 3, and we can certainly come up 4 or 5. There's a lot of different ways to carve this thing. Number 1, did you assume ownership and operations of all the county parks on January 1st? Just take them all in at once. Number 2, you assume ownership of all 10 county parks on January 1st, but retain DeKalb County Parks and Rec operations and staffing of the rec center and the pool. And I'll talk a little bit more about that option in a second. And option 3 is you assume ownership of all of 9 county parks on the 1st, but not the rec center. You allow DeKalb County to continue running the rec center in whole, staffing, maintenance, all of those things. The reason why we put that in is because the rec center is probably going to be your biggest drain on your operational budget. For the repairs and maintenance on it, utility costs, staffing, all of those things, that will be the biggest nut of your budget. So if you guys are looking at the takeover from a fiscal standpoint, a budgeting standpoint, that might be one way that you could have a conversation with the CAB where you take that rec center over at a later date and expend the dollars you have now on some of those other maintenance needs, potential land acquisitions, or capital projects. So it's just something to think about. So option 1, some pros and cons. You guys would take over all the parks from day 1, all the programs, which gives you complete control of all the improvements you want to make. It allows you to decide what your future is and how you want to manage these things. There's no IGA with the CAB for transition. There's no talk about, well, you're going to handle this part of it, we'll handle this part of it, it's yours. There's a lot of desire, I'm sure, from the community to see that happen. I know a lot of the folks in Tucker are excited about having their own parks department and having control over it. So that is one way for you guys to satisfy that citizen desire of having everything at once. What this does for you is it does improve, or gives you the opportunity to improve the agreements that you have with a lot of the agencies that currently partner with DeKalb County. Your friends groups, the instructors at the rec center, any of your outside churches that are partnering with and doing things in your parks with TISA, all those opportunities would then be yours to change those agreements, modify them however you want. If you wanted to change the fee structure on them, you could. There's opportunities to look at your revenues at that point and see if you can increase your revenues at the rec center or through the agreements that you have with TISA and things like that. So one thing with that is the agreements with DeKalb County are far and few between. We've done our best to try to get as many of those as we can. We found that some of them don't exist, some of them are outdated. So certainly, regardless of which option you choose, you're going to want to explore renewing those agreements with the city of Tucker and renegotiating whatever those the desired outcome is of those documents. Another or pro for that option is less citizen confusion on ownership and operation. As you transition these things, if you do it all at one time, everybody knows to go to the city of Tucker. It's not people calling you saying, hey, there's a problem at the pool or there's a problem at the rec center, and you having them to transfer them to DeKalb County or try to figure some other way or communication way to satisfy their needs. It just removes that whole other government entity from the equation. One of the cons for this option is it will be the highest budget you have. It will cost you more to have it all in day one. You will need to cover all the maintenance expenses, all the operational costs of the rec center, all the utilities, all the staffing, all of that would be your responsibility. It's also a timeline issue. If you're going to do this on January 1st, you got to get started now. There's a lot to process between now and then so that there's no interruption in programs. There's a lot that goes on, as you guys know, at the rec center between after-school programs, community classes, summer camps, and there's also the pool wouldn't be so much of an issue because you would get through this summer season, and it wouldn't be until next May until you had to consider how you're going to staff the pool, lifeguarding services, all those types of things. So there's a little bit of a wiggle room for the pool, but the rec center is extremely busy. If you take it all over day one, you're going to need to have something in place to staff it. You're going to need something in place to make sure that the programs are continuing to run, at least to the expectation they are now, which honestly, if you decide to go to option one, you have the opportunity to improve those programs before you take them over. It's just going to be in a confined time between now and January 1. One of the other cons is loss of the Park Pride program, but this is because their agreement is with the DeKalb County. So if you guys take over all the parks, you guys will need to enter into a new agreement with Park Pride to work with your friends' organizations. Park Pride offers a lot of services and volunteer coordination and things like that that you may not have a staff member schooled up to do yet. So there is an advantage to having that agency work with Tucker, but it's something y'all would need to consider if you wanted to continue that relationship or not, or if it's something that you would just want to hire a staff person to do as your volunteer program coordinator. And again, one of the more serious cons of this option is the potential for program interruptions at the rec center. Because of the time frame you have to kind of put your hands around that rec center, it's going to be a challenge to have it all completed by the January 1st timeline. There's a lot goes on there. There's a lot of different groups and agencies working out of there, a lot of staff, and different arrangements that DeKalb has with all those individual people that provide programs at the rec center. So it would be fairly imperative to have a parks director as soon as you can get him in-house to start working through how that transition will take place in the next 7 months or 6 months. It's going to be a challenge for them to be able to wrap their hands around all that to make sure that there is no potential for program interruption at the rec center, especially for your children's programs. When you have an after-school program that families in the community depend on, it's difficult if all of a sudden that program's not there. So you have to make sure that that's at least one of the programs that doesn't have any interruptions in it. If I have any questions, just yell at me anytime you want. My wife does all the time.
We'll make it easy. You're saying January 1st, our time frame could be to May. What made you decide to move it up?
That was the date we were looking at, and through discussion with some of the staff, that was the transition date that y'all were looking at taking over the parks. Certainly, if May is pushed back, option one becomes even more viable. It gives you a full year to hire a director and try to get some of these things straightened out. So,
I think that actually, if we discussed it in our briefings, that this is one of the few things that a tax follows from DeKalb. As we talked about, you're now paying tax into parks in DeKalb County. So if we switch, we take over parks, we're gonna wanna have that revenue come to Tucker to cover that portion of the parks that it would cover. And it would be much cleaner if that began in January. Not the ideal time otherwise, but that's why the discussions are as they are, because that would be the cleanest time to segue the tax.
So option 2 is to assume ownership of all the parks but retain DeKalb County for the operations of the rec center and the pool. And basically what this does, it gives you control over all the maintenance and programs in most of the parks. It gives you, let me back up a little, it gives you total control of the maintenance for all the parks. You would still maintain all 10 parks, including the rec center. You could do capital improvements on Tucker Rec Center, make decisions on how you want to manage that site. You would have full responsibility over all the facilities. It would give you an opportunity to work on agreements with other agencies, which pretty much goes through all the options. One thing we try to do is look at what other recreation providers are doing in the area so that you can either partner with them or not compete against them, because you don't want to double duty what somebody else already does well. But what this does, it gives you an opportunity where if y'all were able to enter into an IGA with DeKalb County, for them to continue staffing the rec center and potentially the pool, but at least the rec center for a time that y'all are comfortable with. It could be for a year, for the first year. Tucker Rec Center would be owned by you, maintained by you, but the staff there would be DeKalb County employees that y'all would reimburse the county for. So they would pay them out of their normal salaries and send you an invoice for those salaries. So your budget would still be the same as option 1. You would still have the responsibility of staffing, but it would give your director and your staff some time to kind of get their hands around the maintenance of all the green spaces and the other facilities, also the maintenance of the rec center and getting it up to speed, but the programs wouldn't see an interruption. They would be able to continue to function with the normal staff that they have through DeKalb County, that y'all would be paying those salaries directly back to DeKalb. So financially, it doesn't really change anything from option 1, but it does give you a little bit of breathing room for programming. And that IGA could be designed in a way where the termination clause could be whatever y'all feel comfortable with. It could be a 90-day. So that way you don't have a deadline on it for 1 year or something like that. You could craft it where either party could provide a 60-day or a 90-day termination to the other. So when y'all feel comfortable, when you feel ready to take on those responsibilities, and once you figure out how to run the programs, how to contract instructors, how to run after-school programs, how to hire that staff to be City of Tucker employees, then you could set that clock with the county and say, okay, in X number of days, we're going to terminate this agreement. And you may find some of those staff that you want to keep, and some of them you may not. So it just gives you a little bit of breathing room, so that's not the whole pile at once. You can take off a piece and worry about it a little bit later. So the cons for that is it does reduce your staffing oversight a little bit. You can certainly put pressure on DeKalb if you're having problems with one of the staff at the rec center, but they are DeKalb County employees. So you would just have to basically let the county know that you have an issue, and then they would have to remedy that issue. So it does take out a little bit of the element of control over the staffing. Also, the quality of staff that's hired, the process they go through to hire those people, again, that would all go through DeKalb County. So a little bit of a reduction in staff oversight. The other part of that is while you're working on other issues in the parks, for the first few months, you're going to kind of let the programs run as they work. So you will be missing an opportunity to, on day 1, start improving those programs. So if there's a concern in the community that the Tucker Rec Center programs aren't truly up to snuff and they need to be improved, you would be delaying that improvement. the opportunity, I guess, from day one wouldn't be there. We'd be slowly transitioning into it. So that is a big concern for the citizens. You would need to make sure that in your conversation with the IGA that there were opportunities for you to make decisions on the programs and that you would have oversight as to how the programs were to continue, even though you were paying the staff to DeKalb County. And some of that can be crafted in the language of the IGA. Again, you get into a little bit of citizen confusion of ownership. Who do they call? Who's responsible for karate? Who do I call if I have my kid has a problem after school? So there's a little bit, again, two government entities involved. So you have to make sure that you have open lines of communication to work through those things. And then, unfortunately, we've seen this in some of the other cities that have transitioned, is when there's a date set, and you guys may have already seen this too, the cab starts to back out. They start pulling stuff out. They know the end is near. So a lot of times, they will start moving staff other places. They'll go ahead and start putting them in other areas of the county, or taking the good ones and putting them somewhere else and giving you some of the less desired staff to finish up at the rec center. So there is a potential for reduced level of service because of some of those issues at the rec center. We've met the rec center staff, great guys. They're really nice people. They really enjoy what they do over there. They definitely have a desire for what they do over there. So if you guys did choose option 2, in my opinion, you're not going to have a hard time with the staff that's at the rec center. I think they're going to want to continue to be there and continue to serve the community. So that was option 2. Anybody have any questions?
I just have one. If we go into an IGA, would the city have an opportunity to set the fees for the programs, or would that totally be decided by DeKalb?
That could be set in the IGA, and I'll defer to your city attorney. Really, there's any language that y'all want to put in there that is agreeable to both agencies is fine. And that's, I'm sorry?
Whatever you can get them to agree.
Yeah, whatever language you want to put in there. And I would suggest doing that. Part of that too would be to make sure though that you have an understanding of what the community is willing to pay or can pay for those services. You don't want to change the fee base so quickly that a lot of the participants can't afford it anymore. You're certainly going to make it cheaper. I'm sure they would be happy if it were cheaper, but rarely do I see piecemeal.
And the other thing on the facilities and the maintenance in these IGAs, if we decided to go with option 2, then that would mean that DeKalb County would still be responsible for the maintenance on.
No, ma'am. In option 2, the city would still have responsibility for the maintenance.
But our IGA, they would, but we would enter to an IGA with DeKalb for maintenance, correct?
No, ma'am, just for the staffing.
Just for staff,
Just for
okay.
the salaries paid for the
right.
staff that run the rec center or run the after-school program, that kind of thing.
Well, that's what you're contemplating in your option 2, but as we were saying, we could create a different variation.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, these, again, are just options you can modify and tweak however you want. And that is actually option 3. Is to take over ownership of the 9 parks and just not cover rec center. Just let the county continue having the responsibility of maintenance costs, utility costs, programming costs, all of those things. It may be difficult to get them to agree to that. They may not want to spend those dollars anymore in Tucker, knowing that the eventuality is that you're going to take them over. But whatever political climate there is, or whatever help y'all can get from the cab, whatever your relationship is with them will kind of dictate if they're willing to keep the rec center as a whole. But that is an option, is that through your transition language with the cab on the parks, you would then go to that idea where they would solely be responsible for the rec center. What that does is it does reduce your liability costs. You can reduce your budget down if you do that, because you won't have the maintenance and staffing costs for the rec center in your budget. but it does create a situation where you may be applying dollars towards other parks and improving them, but the rec center continues to deteriorate. So that's the con for that, is that you're going to see every city that has taken over the parks from DeKalb County has seen immediate improvement, just in maintenance standards in general, just to have local dollars going in, having people with eyes in the parks, maintaining them. So you're going to see a difference between what the rec center looks like and what the rest of the park facilities look like if you guys are maintaining all of them like that. So one of the opportunities with this, what it does too, is if the rec center is being run by DeKalb County, being staffed by DeKalb County and maintained by DeKalb County, that allows your director some time to start looking at other agencies and other partnerships. If there are other types of programs that are desired in the community, it will allow for that time frame to enter into agreements with those agencies. There's pickleballs have become very popular. So if there is, I'm just using this as an example. I'm not telling you to build pickleball, but if there was an outcrop of pickleball in the community, and your director would have time to explore those types of programs and the type of needs instead of having to spend a lot of time trying to figure out type of reps. So that is an opportunity. One of the other big challenges we talked about was the inability to make improvements at the key facility. Y'all could spend this time talking about what you're going to do with the rec center. Certainly through the master plan process, you're going to do that anyway. Do you rehab it? Do you tear it down? Do you build a new facility? Do you add on to what's existing? How do you manage that facility? It has a lot of needs. From a structurally, it's pretty sound. It's a pretty stout old building, but just from a appearance, it needs a lot of work. From energy efficiency, it needs a lot of work. Your basic floor, wall, ceiling, roof, all those things need work. So this would give you an opportunity to talk about what you're going to do with it in that area. And again, this option, the way it can be crafted through an IGA is, again, you could set up some type of termination or agreement time frame as to when you were going to take it over. So there is some opportunity there to do it for a little while, but not lock yourself into a year or two of not having control of that facility. Y'all can make the call as to when you want to take it over. So, some of our recommendations. Not written in stone. As the mayor said, this is very fluid, and you guys can, through Brian's experience and y'all's, add to an idea any way you want. But based on a budget, for option 1 or 2 being equal, you guys need to kind of look at what the expectations are from the community. If it is absolute, we want the rec center, it's an icon in our community, we want improved programs, we want more dance, we want more karate, we want all these things, but we want it better, and we want them in a better facility, then certainly option 1 is your best choice, because that'll give you immediate control over all these things, programs and maintenance. If people are okay with the way the rec center is running right now, they're okay with the programs and the level of service they're getting right now, there is room for improvement. They understand the building's old, they understand it needs to be improved, but they're okay with the idea of letting it continue in its same fashion while the city decides what to do next, if they will allow you that time to do a master plan, to do some concepts of what the rec center could be, to figure out what those programs need to be, how to run them, what the revenue needs to be off of those programs, then option 2 may be your best option. Because that'll give you a little bit more time so you're not rushing into something that you may not be ready to take over this year. Number 2 is to hire a parks director as soon as possible, especially if you're going to go into option 1. I'm currently the parks director in Dunwoody. Just full disclosure, I started a week before we took over the parks. So my number one suggestion, because it's tough, it is hard to try to keep everybody, because you got to remember these things have been going on in the community for a lot of years. These people have park experiences already. It's not like you're building a brand new park in a community that's never had one. They're already using the trails at Henderson. They're already, going to Coker Pool. They're going to the rec center for pottery. They're already doing all these things. So you've got to make sure that you don't interrupt their dog walk. You don't interrupt their level of service that they're already getting. You're just there to improve. But having a parks director start as soon as you can get them in place will help you with that whole transition of making sure that there's no gaps when you do take it over, that you've thought of all the different opportunities they're going to be able to bring their experience in of running a rec center, their experience of running pools, all those things that you want a parks director to do. So the sooner you can get them in here, they're going to be extremely beneficial. And also part of that is the Parks Master Plan. The great thing about a Parks Master Plan, especially in your situation, is even though you don't have a blank slate, you have an opportunity to make vast improvements in your park system. And with that, the maintenance that you do for those parks is dovetailed into that, because you don't want to go spend a bunch of your maintenance dollars repairing facilities that you're going to tear down in a couple of years through your master plan process. So it helps you develop that triage of what's our lowest hanging fruit right now, what do we know is not going to be replaced, what can we repair, get another 10 years out of, or what do we need to prop up for now until we have the capital dollars in the next year to replace it completely. So it'll certainly help you develop your maintenance plan and how you even spend some of those capital dollars for non-master plan items once you get that plan completed. Again, the negotiations with the county are paramount. I mean, you've got to get an idea, and I'm sure you guys already started this conversation, is how they feel about it. What are they willing to give up? I saw a lot of crazy things in Brookhaven when we helped them transition. The cab came in and took all the scoreboards out of the gyms, rolled them outside, and left them. And we're planning to come back and get them, but never did. So they basically went in before we changed the locks and tried to take everything out of the building they could. So there needs to be a discussion with them about what's going to stay in the facilities and what's going to go. What they consider DeKalb County property and not fixed to that facility, and what they're willing to impart to Tucker. For instance, at the rec center, the pottery kilns, the furniture, all those things, you wouldn't think they would want them, but they might. So, so you need to take an inventory of what's in your facilities, down to the chairs and tables and drink machines, all that kind of stuff, and come up with an asset list to share with them to make sure that y'all are all on the same page of when that transition does take place. And then there's been some discussion about a Parks and Recreation referendum. Is a bond referendum in the future. If y'all were to push back the takeover of the parks for a year or so, would that give you opportunity to, during that time, hire your parks director, do your master plan, present that master plan to the community with a capital asset program of how you're going to improve the parks, then do a bond referendum of how those parks improvements would be paid for, and then after all that process, you go through all that process, then take over the parks. There's some great ideas with that. It does give you more time to kind of chew through all this stuff, gives you a little bit more opportunity to see how things are running. But again, one of the biggest concerns with that is the CAB's going to continue to back their services out. You're going to continue to see the parks deteriorate, and there's going to be the potential for backlash from the community if you don't do something, if you don't move with something. And it might be that they're satisfied with the opportunity for a parks director and the public input process of a master plan to be excited about what the parks are going to be, the potential that they will have, but they're still going to want to see some noticeable differences in the upkeep of the facility. They're going to see the bathrooms open and clean and stocked and all those types of things in the park. So number one thing in parks is bathroom. It is, you keep the bathrooms clean, the grass can be a little taller, they'll overlook the grass, get your bathrooms clean. So, so that's our recommendation. Certainly, it's hard to put all this into a short PowerPoint, but it is a lot to think about and how to process. So hopefully that helped a little bit.
So you're suggesting one master plan for all the parks or a master plan for each park?
What I would suggest is a master plan for the entire system with concepts for each park. You do a public input meeting, and I've seen it done in a variety of ways where they had open public input meeting for all the parks on the same kind of level. And then I've seen where you have a conceptual designs and public input for some of the smaller parks and neighborhood parks, but like for the rec center, you may do just a meeting for the rec center. So you get more hands-on, dialed-in conversation just for that facility. So, because you do have some smaller parks, neighborhood parks that their use is kind of limited. You're not going to build a softball complex at Montreal. It's not what the land is limited there. So some of the same attributes you would see there that you see now will continue there with playground, open field space, trails, that kind of thing. So you may not have to spend as much time conceptualizing that facility as you would Henderson. So.
I'd like to understand the finances of the rec center better.
Okay.
Just in general terms, I've heard it said that basically the rec center gets no budget from DeKalb County, and then the guy who's running it now basically runs it out of the fees and whatnot that you can generate and goes back into it. Is that a fair statement? Or
That's what I found with the pottery program. The pottery instructor collects the fees, has an account, puts it right back into that program. The information we got from DeKalb County on the staffing, it's kind of all over the place. Their numbers wrote in job as far as the salaries they were paying out and the number of people that were being paid those salaries. But we took their number, their total sum for salaries there, and used that as the budget number for you guys. Based on what I've seen, what they pay out in salaries is more than the revenue they bring in. So they're operating at a loss. And we do have some paperwork from DeKalb that does show where they pay utility costs, they do pay facility dollars, where they pay them to, I don't know. But they do have some budget for the facility upkeep and maintenance of the facility. So they may be speaking in terms of the programs or salaries and rent premium, or they're doing it as a percentage contract with the instructor where the instructor keeps 70%, county gets 30%. So there's no cost to the city. There's just a revenue other than the upkeep, the upkeep of the facility. But I would venture to say that overall, it probably operates at a loss if you consider maintenance, operational costs, utilities, all those things, any capital improvements. It's not bringing in enough to support that.
is there, I'm sorry, we're getting accustomed to using our microphones. I'm going to sit back and, everybody in the back here, if I sit back here and talk. So is there potential for the rec center to be self-supporting or profitable, let's say? Better management, better programming,
Yeah.
whatever that would include?
It can be. I mean, again, one of your biggest cash cows for a facility like that is your utilities. The heating and air and something like that is substantial. And it depends on what your, I guess, desire is in your parks program. A lot of parks departments see it as a community service and understand there's kind of a black hole in your budget and you're just doing community service through these types of activities, offering low-income after-school programs and things like that, low-income summer camps. Or you can potentially raise the fees and try to operate more of a net zero basis for operations, for your operational costs. I think you're still always going to have a loss in your maintenance and in your utilities. You may be able to make enough. One, you can do percentage contracts with your instructors, which would be no loss of expenditures to the city as far as staffing, payouts and all that for them. It would be a revenue, but you're still, for a rec center that size and the hours of operation, you're going to have a fairly substantial staff to run it. So you're going to always have that staffing overhead too. So it's tough. It is tough.
I know there are probably tons of questions. We'll just kind of move from subject to subject.
Talk to me about pool transition. We have a pool, it's open maybe 2 months. Out of the summer, we have a lot of neighborhood pools. Tell me some of your experience transitioning pools with Dunwoody and Brookhaven.
Okay. Luckily in Dunwoody, I don't have any.
Because
It's
they're
tough.
high liability and
They
they
are.
cost a lot.
They are.
2 months out of the year.
They are tough to run.
Okay, 3 months.
They are. And you're right, they are. They're one of the higher liability concerns for a parks department. My son's a lifeguard, so I can pick on him, but he's 16, and I mean, well, he's not always there. But I hope when he's in the stand, he's paying attention. But the reality of it is first of all, a lot of systems are transitioning to splash pads. There's a reason for that. One, there's not the liability and concern of standing water. There's some different regulations with lifeguarding for standing water versus no water at all. Now, the splash pads drain immediately and they're just on the deck the whole day. So there's not the same level of oversight you have to have as far as lifeguards and that type of thing. What I did in Brookhaven is we opened the pools that summer after the park takeover in January. And it was tough. There were a lot of maintenance things we didn't know about, a lot of pump issues. I was able to continue the contract that DeKalb County had for maintenance over to Brookhaven so we could keep some level of consistency in the maintenance program. They had outsourced that to a pool company to service the pools and break them down, set them back up every year after the season. And then for operations, we wrote a scope of work for pool management and put that on the street. And there's about 4 or 5 different companies, Dynamo is one, and Sears. There's several companies out there that provide concessions, they provide lifeguards, they provide front desk services. They can either do a revenue share with you for the concession stands or the admittance on the pool. So there's some options out there. If guys choose to take them over. Of course, this year the season will have passed, but you can certainly do it by next summer if you wanted to get Cobra open and go in. I did the inspection at that pool, and it needs some love. You know, the building, it needs a little help here and there. I think for another season or 2, you would probably be okay. I certainly wouldn't recommend doing anything until you do a Parks Master Plan to see what the desires of the community and what that facility needs to be.
Can you tell me a little bit about what fees would be for families, or, and what other cities are charging for these types of?
Sure. I can tell you about Decatur. I lived there, and their pool schedules came out. They roughly residents $3 a day for 14 and up. I think under that it's $2. Kids under 2 are free. For non-residents, it's $5 a visit. They sell a resident pass for $125 for the year, and a non-resident, I believe, is $225.
That's for an individual, not for a family.
So the family is $125. Yeah.
What's Covert charging at this point?
That I'm not sure of. It's probably roughly in the same ballpark. Yeah, it's $1. So
I have one question for you. Do you have the data from the rec center that you can share with us?
as far as
What services they have right now, what programs they got through, what's their level of service?
I don't have all that in front of me tonight.
Well, no, could you send it to us later?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Isn't that part of the larger?
Yeah, it is. One of our coworkers, Rachel Waldron, spent a good bit of time with Will Smith, the director over there, talking about all the programs, how they run them, their operations. She actually went over and volunteered at one of them one day just to see how it went. So, yes, we have all that data.
I mean, just on top of that, I'd love to see the financial data that you were talking about before that you have, that's maybe a little ambiguous, but to
Sure.
determine whether it's revenue neutral or not. Because I've kind of, we've heard a little bit opposite, that the money comes in for the, let's put pottery aside, because someone's running that in a different way, maybe, but that a lot of times fees will come in and they go directly to DeKalb County. So if the checks are written to DeKalb County, then it's just their, whatever they've set aside to come back to the rec center, having nothing to do with what they make or don't make. It's a preset budget. So that's a little bit different than maybe what we were saying. And so
Right.
that means, if that's the case, then it may be that there's an opportunity for it to be more revenue neutral if we don't,
Sure.
if we can't identify what's actually going out, if they
Right.
provided that to you.
Yeah, they use ActiveNet, which is a pretty common software for registration.
For the actual for actually students registering, you mean?
Mhm. Yes, ma'am. And so, but I'm not sure how much of it is actually being used. It was kind of hard to follow how they do registrations because they still write some paper receipts. And then, so it's kind of hard to follow that money trail to know how much is actually coming in. But you're right, the fees that are paid go to DeKalb, and my assumption is DeKalb then cuts a check to the instructor for the number of students. But as Parks Department, it's imperative that you track the registrations. If you can't have your instructor come in here and say, yes, I had 20 people in the class, you owe me X, and he only had 10. So it has to be monitored. My suggestion is that all the money comes to Tucker. You set up a recreation software. There's several on the market that do online registration. You do the same platform in the Tucker Rec Center and in your other facility, City Hall. Whole process, all payments are processed to the city, and then at the end of the quarter or session, the facility manager or parks director or whoever has that task submits payment requests to the city based on the online register or the registrations that are in that system. It's not going to be.
And I'm not trying to confuse the issue, but aren't there also some scenarios there where a little bit, they're the opposite of that as much, is that the person that's directing the class, whatever it is, actually pays for the space? And so there's no tracking of the students, and that payment of the space goes directly to DeKalb County as well?
I haven't seen that with DeKalb, but that does happen. A lot of parks departments will do that. Especially a lot of smaller departments, if they don't have the staff that can kind of manage all the facilities where programs are going on. It's an easier way to say, you get this room for 6 weeks, from whatever time to whatever time, here's your key. It's, $300 or $400, and that's it. That's almost like a rental agreement, more than a instructor agreement. One thing, that it decreases your staff oversight of the program a little bit, because you have no idea what they're doing in there. Unless the attendees tell you. And then sometimes you kind of get into this, he said, she said, it's a situation where the instructor doesn't agree with the student, and that kind of stuff. But again, the onus is on the instructor, because your relationship with them is just as a facilitator. You're not going into an agreement for a shared revenue. You're just facilitating whatever their activity is.
So to follow up on that, the last stats that I saw, it looked to me that the DeKalb County published that the Tucker Rec Center had the highest participation in the county, but the lowest revenue. Did they give you any of that? No.
I didn't see any of that data, but my assumption would be that they're counting their after-school program.
That is true.
Yeah, so, and I know a lot of the children in that program are low income, so I don't have any data on how they're paying for that after-school program, if it's fully subsidized by DeKalb County, or if they're receiving any kind of 21st century grant funds, federal grant money, or anything like that. But it would also be interesting to look at the books on payments to instructors, and because again, your participation numbers and your income numbers can be pretty skewed.
And also the fact that they go and pick these children up after school,
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
it's another service that they provide.
Yeah, it is a very popular after-school program. Sure.
Thank you.
Let's talk about the budget at kind of the system level.
Sure.
Right now, if we took over responsibility for all the parks from the cab right now, and as part of that took over the millage rate, it's about $400,000 revenue that we would be receiving from the current millage rate to run the parks on. DeKalb says they're spending closer to $600,000. And your review is contemplating some level of service. I'm talking maintenance kind of things, mowing the grass, clearing dead trees, painting, all that sort of stuff. Characterize for us what you think we need to spend to achieve the level of service, and describe that in some way for us so we kind of get some benchmarks.
Sure. The way I broke down your budget was based on supplies, repair, maintenance, staffing. So I try to put it into categories so you can take it out as a piece for that level of service. So maintenance, I'll put under your repair and maintenance.
Do we have these numbers that you're?
I've got them in front of me. I don't know that we put them into this.
Is that the all? Decent. Do we have any more? I'm sorry, I kind of. I'll share it best I can. But we can talk in round numbers, because what I'm trying to get to is, I want you to describe sort of the current state of things, what you think our state of things for good maintenance programs ought to be. And I'm especially interested in, if we're only going to get $400,000 out of the millage rate that's being charged now, we're going to have to find the difference, and that's really the budget question, right? So if we're going to spend $1 million instead, we got to have $600,000 that comes from some other source.
Sure. And so what I tried to provide you guys was a higher level of maintenance, the highest level, and it be agreeable to the community. And that way you can back off from there. I didn't want to lowball it and say, oh, you know, you could amp up from here. It's a lot easier to, they love seeing cuts. So it's easier to cut than it is to add. So your overall repair and maintenance budget, just repair and maintenance, don't include staff, no, is just shy of $1 million. It's $977,000. But of that, $540,000 of that is your grounds maintenance crew. On a contracted basis, this would be putting out an RFP for services, putting in all the scope of work that you would want them to do, and having a private company come in. The way I've structured them in the other two cities was the crews were in-house. They stayed in that city. They had a facility that they reported to every morning. They kept their equipment there, their vehicles there, everything was there. They operated just like a normal, typical parks crew that are city employees. But you get the advantage of not being responsible for the maintenance on their vehicles, the maintenance on their mowers, the weed eaters, the fuel costs. All those things are built into the contract. So that, I typically try to do a ratio of 1 crew person to 25 acres. That's a good way of kind of figuring out what you're going to need. And a lot of people say, well, some of it's wooded and some of it's not maintained. And all this, but even your wooded area still need maintenance. You still need to do tree clearing, you need understory clearing, you need to do trail work. There's a lot of stuff that goes on outside of just mowing the grass. So that maintenance contract, we roughly did around 8 persons with the foreman, so you'd have a 9-man crew, and that came into $540,000. So for that number, that takes care of the bulk of your grounds maintenance, and that would be a contract that you would be locked into for that year. The other monies are broken up over whatever you decide to spend it on. If you want to put in new turf, there's a a number in there for what you could spend on new grass on some of the fields. There's numbers in there for building repair, so you wanted to paint the rec center or not. It's a little bit more cherry picking opportunity than just the grounds maintenance contract. So you could fluctuate that number outside of the $540,000 a year, whichever direction you wanted to. If you wanted to take it all in and go and try to repair and all the things that we're going to recommend in the study, you could do that at the higher number. But if you decided to cut the budget back, then you would have to choose things that you didn't want to repair at this time or defer to a later time.
So for comparison's sake, what DeKalb is doing right now, it sounds like what you're calling the grounds maintenance. They're kind of doing the bare minimum, and whatever it is people are seeing as the current state of things, that's what we're getting for the 600,000 or so. On what you're talking about in the budget, 540,000 for a 9-person crew, what would be the visible difference? What would we be doing under that contract that DeKalb is not doing or not doing a good job of right now?
Well, first of all, you would have eyes on your parks pretty much on a daily basis. What the DeKalb does is around a 3-week mowing schedule. They will come, that roving crew will come through about every 2 to 3 weeks. Take up the trash. They may have a trash guy that comes by more often, but typically the mowing crew, and they've outsourced a lot of their parks maintenance now too, to try to keep up. But the biggest benefit is you will have a standing crew that's now only responsible for the 10 parks in Tucker. They're not responsible for a district or an area of the county where they honestly spend more time behind the wheel driving around all the park facilities than they do actually in the park. And so that's your biggest difference. The local, and this is just having local government, is having direct control. But that's the biggest difference you're going to see is, one, you got control of them. They're your guys. You can tell them, I want this mowed more or I don't. You know, I want this area cleared out. And your parks director will be able to call those shots and really have, in a lot of ways, immediate action. You know, if there's a hazard, if there's liability, you don't have to wait to hopefully get a response back from the county. You have that oversight immediately. So you also have the opportunity to use that maintenance crew for special events, for parades, for all these other things that may not be in the park, but you can certainly write your scope of work to where they have to provide 100 hours a year of additional service for city events or anything that you guys want to do. So it's different from where I came from. You know, I was in Gwinnett for 9 years. I had a very standard parks maintenance crew and equipment and all the fees that go into that and the costs that go into it. So when I first started doing it in Dunwoody, it was different, but now after doing it for 7 years, it's fairly seamless. I mean, I see my parks maintenance guys as Dunwoody maintenance. And you know, we developed a level, a standard of maintenance that we wanted to see and what our expectations are, and we hope to do it. So, and the nice thing about outsourcing it also is, if I don't like something that I'm seeing, I call the vendor and let him know, and he lets his guys know. It's not me having to get on to, you know, the guys cutting grass or whatever. It's, I pick up the phone and one call and it's taken care of.
I still have lots of questions, but I don't want to monopolize here. Y'all, things you'd like to ask? Here's a question I get a lot. I happen to live 2 houses from the Gwinnett County line. So there's a city of Lilburn and a Gwinnett County park that are closer to me than others. People ask me all the time, what do we have to do to get to the level that Gwinnett County's managed to achieve? What's the difference? Why can they do it and DeKalb hasn't been able to, and will Tucker be able to?
Yeah, they're, again, I spent 9 years over there and actually ran those parks. You're probably talking about Lucky Shoals or Mount Park. Yeah, that was my office in the old depot over there for years. So the advantage that Gwinnett has is they have a SPLOST program. You know, they have a sales tax that funds all of their capital programs. So they can spend a lot of their operational money comes from from the tax base, and they have a up to $1 million rec fund in their county budget too, where the county commissioners every year decide what the millage rate is going to be up to 1 mil for recreation, for operations. And then they also have the SPOS program, a sales tax program to fund capital improvements. So they're not having to use their operational income for capital projects. They're not having to balance those capital expenditures with their operational expenditures. So that helps a lot. One change I did see with the county when I was there is certainly when real estate bubble burst, they felt the pain just like everybody else. So we had to kind of revisit how we maintained our parks. And we kept it at a certain bar level of mowing certain areas and doing all these great things. We had to dial it down to be able to afford the staffing cuts that we went through over there too. So part of it, Gwinnett County is smart about how they manage their parks operations. They've gone in and taken a look at their natural assets in the parks, created a level of service and expectation in the community of we're going to maintain our park like this in this area, we're going to maintain it like this in this area. And they do a really good job of communicating that to their citizens and why they're doing it that way. And so it doesn't look like they're just giving up on that and not doing it so much anymore. So again, communication is key, making sure that you have all that information going out, why you're doing it, how you're doing it, what the benefits of doing it are. But they also they hire a lot of staff, and they do hire full-time recreation specialists. They hire full-time parks maintenance employees. They outfit them with really good equipment. They give them uniforms, boots, pants. They give them full uniforms. So they take care of their staff too. So there's consistency. There's continuity. They stay. Once those parks maintenance guys get there, they're not there for 2 years on the grounds crew and then leave. They stay for 20 years. So it's just they've created a culture over there that creates that environment.
So what are the citizens paying in taxes for parks? Is there a line item or is it bucketed into something else?
Into Gwinnett County? Oh, I don't know. I don't know what I haven't looked at their latest tax millage rate is.
Yeah, that's just for capital, I think.
Yeah.
That's just for the capital project.
I understand, but they have another, it's separated out.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's still gonna be some.
1 mil.
No, that's different, he's saying they can use
That's
it
a
for
SPOS. No, they have that, but the 1 mil comes straight out of their sales tax. A 1%.
The SPOS is the sales tax that's towards parks for capital improvements or land purchases. And then in their operating budget, they have a rec fund up to 1 million. And then the county commissioners decide if it's going to be 0.68 or 0.77 or whatever the budget can allow, but it can't exceed 1 million. So if they're flush 1 year, they'll raise it. If they're cutting back or building a road somewhere, they'll bring it down a little bit below 1 million. But the nice thing is they have a dedicated rec fund. It's not an afterthought in their budget process. They know they have great parks. They know it's a selling point. So they're dedicated to that. They have a rec authority board that is very active, helps with property purchases and naming the parks and all these types of things, which is great for the county. It's something that y'all might want to consider through your master plan process if you need one, if you want any type of recreation authority. My suggestion would be that you've got to give them a purpose. If you're going to have a rec authority board, you need to make sure that they have very clear, defined role in what the process is. You don't want them stepping over staff or stepping over you guys to control what happens in the parks department. So you just have to make sure those bylaws are really tight and that they know what they're there to do. So.
Yeah, Gwinnett County, the 2015 tax year had a 0.95 millage rate.
For
Almost
their
1
parks.
for recreation, it was 0.95 mils, almost 1.
Thank you. It's only important to know, I mean, I just wanted to point out that that's twice what DeKalb pays, what DeKalb residents pay. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but just for perspective, it's good to know. And the reminders, they have SPLOST, we have MARTA.
Right.
And as you all know, can I put this over we have a SPLOST option that's going to be on the ballot very soon. So this is exactly the kind of thing that we need to be thinking about when you guys make a decision on voting for 1 cent, which would be capital projects, which would include parks, can include parks. It would depend on how each community delegates that. But as that comes up probably in November, remember Gwinnett County, and that's exactly what they use their money for. Thank
That's
you.
why the roads are better too.
Yeah,
Just
roads,
plug that for a
capital, all of
minute.
that stuff, yeah.
All right, I didn't mean to get into
No, but
it.
I mean, this is the perspective that's needed for this conversation, right? So
And you guys, if you don't mind, y'all have a great opportunity with your new development at Buena Vista. Is, one reason why Gwinnett, SLOSS did so well, especially back in the early 2000s, is the Mall of Georgia. And all the folks from Gainesville and Forsyth County, all those people came down there to shop. So they built a lot of the Gwinnett County facilities in the early 2000s. So it's a great opportunity to have other people pay for your infrastructure if you have a reason for them to come here and spend their money. So working through economic development and creating those opportunities is a direct correlation to how good your parks can be.
Can I change the subject for a second? The statement of work of your contract said, look at the present facilities. In the survey you were developing, was there conversation or feedback from the participants about the needs for parks in other places?
A little bit. There were a few comments about, there's this lot here, and you should take a look at this area near my house. More of the comments were based on needs in the park, cleanliness, need bathrooms, need maintenance, that type of thing. A few people wanted a dog park. So, but most of it was about the existing park facilities. There were just a few comments about property purchase.
But as we move to a master plan, we would be looking at park deserts or things like that.
Right, and typically the way you do that is you take a radius of that park based on its size. A community park is roughly a 10-mile radius around it. Neighborhood park's about a half-a-mile radius around it that it serves. Then you have pocket parks that serve maybe a quarter mile, usually less than that. So you would definitely be able to see your park vacancies.
Which then also jacks up the costs associated with maintenance and all. So,
Absolutely,
yeah.
yes.
Thank you.
All of which will come when we're talking more about the capital part, acquiring the land and that kind of thing. You have a question?
I have one budgetary question. So when you figured out the top number of $1 million, did you take account all the other agencies like TISA and whatnot, doing the maintenance and the agreements they had? Is that on top of that, or is that below that?
That would be below that. It's a great question. I forgot to mention that earlier. I did not take into consideration the service that TISA is doing on the soccer fields, because that agreement's with the CAF, and you guys moving forward will have to fashion that agreement if you want to continue the same level of service with TISA, if you want to just keep
So that's if we
status quo.
took everything over?
Right.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right,
if
that's
you
what I
guys
needed to know.
maintain the fields, did all turf replacement, fertilization, all that. So like I said, I'll set you at the top so you can work backwards based on these agreements with other agencies.
One other quick question that relates more to capital items, but I know people are interested. We have two important dams at John's Homestead and at Henderson Park, and we have a pool at Tucker Rec Center, all of which could pose big liabilities. Are you going to report to us? Is there anything you can say tonight about, are we anticipating big costs associated with any of those, or what sort of analysis have you done on
The
those?
dams, John could probably speak a little bit more about. We did have an engineer on staff go out and look at them, and a lot of those recommendations will be in the final report. I'm not an engineer, so that wasn't part of my.
Well, and I don't want to get too far afield. I just know that those are, maybe I should speak for myself. I lose sleep over them.
Yeah.
Right? And when I think about taking over the park system all at once and finding out the next day that we got a big problem with one or more of those facilities, that could consume a whole budget.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because that definitely needs to be part of that fiber of the communication with the county is, who's going to maintain the dam after the fact, or do you want to own that part of the park? Do you want to own that park right now? Is there capital dollars sitting over in DeKalb County that were earmarked for that? So yeah, all those things need to be fleshed out through the IGA process with DeKalb County.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have my, what's the cost for a master plan?
Could run you $125,000. I mean, it's hard to say, you're gonna put it out to bid, so.
I mean, give or take.
Yeah, roughly around $100,000, give or take a little bit. It depends on the scope of work. The big cost is in the public input meetings. A lot of times, the more you have of those, the higher the fee gets, because it requires presentation materials, drive time, and all that kind of stuff. So,
Some of that could be a function of the skill level, the experience level of our parks director, right?
Absolutely.
Who may have some input, may be able to do some of that work under his or her responsibilities.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Can I ask one more? The, when you took over for Dunwoody or the other cities, we have in our existence this Tucker Rec that has a long history. And it was well used before it became the rec center, and it's continued to be well used. Did you face within when you picked up the responsibility a week later after going into your town, a community center that was in that kind of shape? And what did you do with that?
We, in Dunwoody, we have the North DeKalb Cultural Arts Center, and it's also the Dunwoody Library. It's in the old Dunwoody Elementary School on Chamblee Dunwoody Road. Very similar to what you guys get here. One fortunate aspect was that the library was attached to it. The library has a separate funding system than the Parks Department, so that area of the building was probably maintained at a little bit higher level. The other side is the Arts Center, so you can imagine it's filthy. You know, it's an art center, so it wasn't maintained at quite that high level. What we did with it is we own the entire thing, or Dunwoody owns the entire thing. They leased back the library portion to DeKalb for $1 a year. And DeKalb is responsible for maintaining that wing. We did a lot of capital improvements to our end of the facility, new roof, new window glazing. We got an energy efficiency grant to do the light switches and motion activated. So there was some funding that we got through a federal grant that helped us make some of those upgrades. But a lot of it was just maintenance. It was repainting the walls, replacing the base coat, stripping, waxing the floors, cleaning it. You know, just some basic stuff that really has transitioned it into a new center. That did not happen overnight. This was over several years. Dunwoody floated a bond referendum after they did their Parks Master Plan. It failed. It didn't pass. They didn't get the votes for it. It was kind of a tough time economically when we put it out there. So what we then had to do was take that 5-year spending plan and basically stretch it out over 15 and triage that level of service and what was the biggest need, what was the biggest liability. This is the amount of money we have, so let's break this into smaller pieces and do this year we're going to do this, next year we're going to do that. So it can be overwhelming when you start looking at it as a whole, especially if you don't have a funding source such as a bond to do it all at once. There's a lot of cost savings to doing it all at once, to being able to find a contractor, go in, do a capital campaign, pay for it all at one time. It's like pulling that Band-Aid off at once. It locks the center down for a little while. It disrupts progress for a little while, but then you're done. As opposed to coming in every year and trying to slowly make improvements. You get a better price when you contract out bigger jobs too than a lot of smaller ones.
And the library is still associated with that.
It's still-
And the irony on this, when Tucker Rec came into where it is presently, it was the result of, we had a building that had Tucker Rec and the library together, and they wanted to expand the library and moved us to somewhere else.
Somewhere else.
It's kind of funny.
So, and Brookhaven has Linwood, which is very similar. They have a couple other rec centers too, but Linwood is probably the closest to Tucker Rec. It has an after-school program. It has basketball, very thriving basketball program. They have summer camps in there. They chose to renovate that facility. Probably some long-range plan. I haven't looked at their latest master plan, but there's probably either a replacement or another facility built somewhere else in town to replace that one. But And that's one thing to consider. I mean, you guys are fortunate, your rec center is it's in a good location. It's not tucked back in a neighborhood somewhere, it wasn't a neighborhood school that, people can't find or don't know where it is. It really is in a centralized location for a variety of activities and fairly easy to find. So when you're going through your master plan process, that needs to be part of the discussion is, does the rec center need to stay here, or would it be better served in another area of the community? Could we rehabilitate that into something else and keep the building, but still build another recreation center? So there's a lot of opportunity there.
How are we going, Tom? Good. Anything else? Thank you very much.